Listen carefully. Not every blockage is visible. Not every enemy stands in front of you. Sometimes your life is not falling apart because you are weak, but because something unseen is quietly interfering. When effort brings no reward, when discipline suddenly feels heavy, when your mind turns against you without reason, this is not bad luck. This is a warning, and today you will learn how to recognize it before it controls your destiny. There is a moment many people reach where they begin to question themselves, not because they are lazy, not because they lack ability, but because no matter how much effort they give, the results never arrive. They wake up early, they stay disciplined, they repeat the process again and again, and yet life gives them almost nothing in return. When effort and outcome are no longer connected, something deeper must be observed. Understand this clearly. The universe is built on balance. Action creates reaction. When you pour energy into the world, something must respond. If it does not, it is not always because you are doing something wrong. Sometimes it is because the energy is being interrupted before it can take form. This is one of the quietest signs of spiritual obstruction. Nothing dramatic happens. There is no sudden collapse. Instead, progress slowly dissolves. Momentum disappears. Motivation drains, not from failure, but from exhaustion without reward. Many people blame themselves at this stage. They think they are weak. They think they lack talent. They begin to lower their standards and accept less than they deserve. This is exactly how unseen interference succeeds. It does not attack directly. It waits until the person turns against themselves. When effort produces no fruit, doubt enters the mind. And when doubt enters, discipline weakens. Look closely at your patterns. You may notice that just when things begin to move forward, something small disrupts everything. A misunderstanding, a sudden expense, a distraction that pulls you off course. Each interruption alone seems harmless, but together they form a pattern of obstruction. The path never fully opens. Doors remain half closed. Opportunities come close, but never stay. This kind of blockage feeds on frustration. The more you struggle, the more tired your spirit becomes. Over time, you begin to move without presence. You act, but your heart is no longer aligned. This separation between effort and intention creates an opening. When inner balance is disturbed, external influence finds space to operate. Do not confuse this with patience being tested. Patience still carries growth. Here, there is only stagnation. The days pass, but nothing accumulates. And slowly you forget how powerful focused effort once felt. That loss of momentum is not accidental. It is designed to make you stop believing in cause and effect, to make you doubt the natural law that effort leads to reward. The moment you recognize this pattern, you take the first step toward reclaiming your energy. Awareness alone begins to restore flow. When you stop blaming yourself and start observing the blockage, control returns. And once control returns, interference weakens. There is another sign that appears quietly, so quietly that many people mistake it for laziness or loss of faith. You once moved toward discipline naturally. Stillness did not frighten you. Prayer, reflection, structure, and self-control gave you clarity. But slowly, without a clear reason, you began to avoid them. The mind finds excuses, the body feels heavy. What once felt grounding now feels uncomfortable. This shift does not happen overnight, it arrives subtly. You sit down to pray and suddenly feel restless. You plan to meditate and find yourself reaching for distractions. You promise yourself discipline tomorrow, then delay it again and again. And the strange part is this: there is no external obstacle. Nothing is stopping you except an invisible resistance rising from within. Understand that discipline strengthens the inner authority of a person. Stillness sharpens awareness. Prayer aligns the heart. These practices build a kind of inner light. Anything that thrives on confusion, weakness, or fear cannot remain where clarity grows. So the first response of interference is not attack, but avoidance. It pushes you away from anything that reconnects you with your center. At this stage, many people begin to judge themselves harshly. They think their faith is fading. They believe they have become undisciplined or spiritually empty. This judgment deepens the problem, because when a person believes they have fallen, they stop trying to rise. Avoidance then becomes habit, and habit becomes identity. Pay attention to how resistance feels. It is not loud, it does not shout, it whispers, it says, "Not now," it says, "You are tired," it says, "This will not help anyway." These thoughts feel reasonable, yet they always point in the same direction. away from stillness, away from structure, away from inner work. And once you step away from these anchors, the mind becomes easier to influence. Discipline is not about punishment. It is about alignment. When you remove it, life becomes noisy, thoughts scatter, emotions fluctuate. In this unstable state, external forces find space to operate because the inner guard is lowered. The spirit becomes distracted, and distraction weakens awareness. Notice how avoidance brings no peace. Skipping prayer does not free the mind. Avoiding stillness does not bring relief. Instead, anxiety increases. Restlessness grows. This is the sign. True growth, even when difficult, leaves a sense of grounding. Interference leaves only emptiness and confusion. The moment you gently return to discipline, resistance intensifies. This confirms what is happening. The path that brings strength always meets opposition when something wishes to keep you weak. Do not fight it with anger. Observe it with calm certainty. Each small return to stillness reclaims a piece of your authority. There is a type of exhaustion that cannot be explained by sleep, nutrition, or work. You rest, you eat well, you try to recover, but no matter what you do, the fatigue does not leave. It is not physical in the traditional sense. It is not a simple tiredness from effort. It is a deep, pervasive emptiness that drains motivation and blurs focus. You wake up with a weight on your chest, as if the energy you slept to restore has been absorbed before it could reach you. This is a warning the body and spirit send when interference is present. This exhaustion has a rhythm of its own. It often arrives suddenly during times when life should feel lighter. You may notice that after moments of clarity or small successes, fatigue follows immediately. The mind struggles to concentrate. Decisions feel heavier than usual. Even simple tasks become difficult to complete. The pattern is not random. There is a force that feeds on your vitality, slowly eroding the reserves that support your growth. People often dismiss this as stress, anxiety, or overwork, but there is a subtle difference. Stress is temporary. It comes and goes. Spiritual or energetic exhaustion lingers. It does not respond to rest alone. You may take a full night's sleep and awaken feeling as drained as the previous day. You may try relaxation, entertainment, or distractions, and still, the emptiness persists. Something unseen is consuming the energy that should flow through you, leaving only fatigue behind. This type of energy drain affects not just the body, but the mind. Thoughts become heavy. Motivation fades. Small tasks feel monumental. Even those who are disciplined, who meditate, pray, and maintain routine, can feel this pull. It is a subtle, persistent pressure, like a shadow over the spirit, constantly pushing down, making everything harder than it should be. The key is awareness. Recognize the difference between ordinary fatigue and spiritual exhaustion. Ordinary fatigue leaves space for recovery. Spiritual exhaustion leaves no recovery. It distracts, it weakens, and it isolates. It creates openings for interference to influence decisions, emotions, and even the subconscious mind. The more energy that is drained, the more vulnerable you become to patterns of doubt, fear, and self-sabotage. You may notice that attempts to improve your life, even small ones, seem to fail repeatedly. The effort is there, but the results remain blocked. This exhaustion does not attack directly. It does not force dramatic change. It subtly undermines, making the struggle feel heavier than it should, wearing down resistance and eroding inner strength. Once you understand this, you realize the importance of protecting your energy, consciously replenishing your spirit, and observing the moments when fatigue feels unnatural. Do not ignore it or dismiss it as mere coincidence. Energy is the foundation of all progress, and when it is quietly stolen, nothing else in life can align properly. There is a moment when you begin to notice thoughts that feel foreign, as if they belong to someone else. Doubt appears suddenly, often without reason. Anger rises unexpectedly. Fear lingers where there was none before. You start to question yourself in ways that feel unnatural, as if the voice guiding your mind has changed. This is not imagination, and it is not weakness. It is a silent sign that something unseen is attempting to influence the way you think, the choices you make, and the way you experience your own life. These thoughts arrive quietly at first, a fleeting worry, a small fear, a sense that you cannot handle what is coming. You brush it aside, but slowly they grow stronger, repeating in your mind with insistence. You may notice them in the middle of the day, when nothing has triggered anxiety, or in the middle of the night when sleep should feel restful. The key difference between ordinary thoughts and these intrusive ones is their persistence and their tone. They undermine, they distract, and they distort your perception of reality. It is easy to dismiss these thoughts as imagination or mood fluctuations, but there is a pattern here. Thoughts that repeat, that feel heavier than the usual mind chatter, and that direct you toward doubt, despair, or self-sabotage are often not entirely your own. They are like shadows pressing against the walls of your mind, filling space that once belonged to clarity, confidence, and peace. When you do not recognize them, they begin to shape behavior. Decisions become hesitant, actions are delayed, confidence is eroded. One of the most subtle effects of these thoughts is that they appear reasonable. They disguise themselves as caution, as practicality, as ordinary reflection. They whisper, "You are not ready," or "You cannot succeed," or "This is too difficult." The danger is that the mind begins to accept these suggestions as truth, weakening inner authority. A person who is influenced in this way no longer trusts their own instincts. They turn to others for validation, second-guess every choice, and feel disconnected from the guidance that once came naturally. This interference is not always aggressive. It does not always announce itself with chaos. Often it works quietly, building layers of doubt and distraction until the person begins to feel like a stranger to themselves. Inner voice becomes confused, actions feel heavy, motivation falters, and once inner authority is weakened, it becomes easier for other forces to interfere, creating a cycle of indecision and inner conflict that can take years to recognize. The first step in breaking this cycle is awareness. When you notice thoughts that feel foreign, examine them without judgment. Ask yourself, is this truly my voice, or is it trying to pull me away from my center? Awareness begins the process of reclaiming authority. With each recognition, the influence of these foreign thoughts diminishes. You regain clarity, trust in your own mind, and the ability to act decisively. Recurring negative thoughts that do not feel like your own are a warning. They are a signal to protect your mind, strengthen your awareness, and reconnect with your inner guidance. There is a pattern in life that many people overlook because it does not arrive as a single, dramatic event. Instead, it comes as a quiet, persistent frustration. Right when something is about to work, it does not. Right when success is near, delays appear. Opportunities seem to vanish just as you are ready to claim them. These interruptions are not random. They follow a rhythm, a subtle pattern that signals obstruction. When this happens repeatedly, it is a silent sign that something unseen is influencing the flow of your life. At first, it is easy to blame circumstance. The car breaks down, a meeting is postponed, a call is not returned. Small disruptions appear, and we consider them normal. Life has its delays, but when this pattern repeats over weeks, months, and even years, it is no longer normal. It is deliberate obstruction, designed to keep you from reaching the next stage of your life. You may notice that progress arrives in small steps, only to be interrupted before it can take root. Every time you are on the verge of advancement, an unseen force creates a roadblock. These interruptions are subtle. They rarely feel aggressive. They may come as arguments, misunderstandings, sudden responsibilities, or financial burdens. Sometimes they feel like coincidences that always happen at the most inconvenient times. The danger is that the mind begins to accept them as ordinary misfortune, and slowly patience gives way to frustration, and frustration gives way to despair. When the spirit feels trapped in an endless cycle of near success and obstruction, energy begins to drain, confidence begins to falter, and self-doubt grows. The force behind these interruptions does not work openly. It works in the quiet spaces between your effort and reward, where you cannot see it. It is like a shadow in the rhythm of life, constantly shifting and adjusting to keep progress out of reach. Once you recognize this pattern, it becomes clear that life is not simply chaotic. There is a subtle influence that must be observed, acknowledged, and addressed. Understanding this is the first step toward reclaiming your momentum. Do not underestimate the effect of repeated disruption. Each delay chips away at determination, each interruption weakens faith in your abilities, and each missed opportunity creates a sense of inevitability that the universe is against you. This is why awareness is critical. Observe where your life repeatedly stalls. Look at the areas where doors open only to close again. Recognize the patterns without blaming yourself, because the interference is external, not a reflection of your effort or worth. The moment you begin to notice these cycles, you begin to regain control. You learn to anticipate disruption, to protect your energy, and to respond with calm clarity rather than frustration. You strengthen the inner guidance that can see beyond the interruptions and maintain focus on the path ahead. Life may still present challenges, but when you understand this force, it no longer has the quiet power to hold you back. There is a quiet shift that can happen in a person's life, almost imperceptible at first, but deeply damaging if ignored. You begin to hesitate where once you acted confidently. Decisions that were simple now feel heavy. You find yourself constantly seeking advice, approval, or validation from others, even in areas where you once trusted your instincts. The connection to your own intuition seems to fade, and with it comes a subtle but profound loss of inner authority. When this happens, life begins to feel confusing, as if you are no longer in the driver's seat. Inner authority is the foundation of every decision, every step forward, and every boundary you set in life. When it is intact, you move with clarity, confidence, and purpose. When it weakens, influence slips in from outside forces. You may notice yourself agreeing to things you do not want, tolerating situations that do not serve you, or ignoring your own feelings because doubt has crept in. The mind becomes a field where multiple voices compete, and the true voice, your inner guidance, grows quieter. This weakening does not occur suddenly. It begins with small compromises, little moments where you allow external opinions or pressures to outweigh your own judgment. Each compromise builds upon the last, and over time, your authority erodes until even decisions that once felt effortless now feel burdensome. You question yourself constantly, rechecking choices, and the freedom to act decisively begins to feel foreign. When inner authority is lost, vulnerability increases. Emotional influence, manipulation, and subtle obstruction find fertile ground. The stronger the person's inner guidance once was, the more they feel the absence of it when it fades. You may notice that once simple decisions, where to go, what to say, how to act, now provoke anxiety. You may feel paralyzed in situations where you would have acted naturally before, and in this paralysis, opportunity slips by and external forces fill the void left by your weakened authority. Many people respond to this by blaming themselves, thinking they have lost strength, wisdom, or courage. But the truth is, inner authority can be interfered with. Subtle influence works not by overt attack, but by creating doubt, fear, and hesitation. It isolates you from your natural instincts and confuses your judgment, making it easier for patterns of obstruction to control the flow of your life. The effect is gradual, quiet, and often undetected until it has caused significant disruption. Reclaiming inner authority begins with recognition. Notice where hesitation has replaced instinct. Observe the areas where you feel pulled by external voices instead of guided by your own insight. Small acts of decision-making, made intentionally and confidently, rebuild this authority. Each choice, each step taken with trust in your own judgment, strengthens the inner guidance that interference seeks to weaken. When you feel disconnected from your own intuition, when hesitation and doubt dominate where certainty once lived, it is a warning you cannot ignore. Your life cannot be guided by outside influence. You must reclaim your inner authority to stand fully in your own power.